Hey everyone, Steven here, and welcome to my little library of horrors. Well, happy October, everybody. It's officially spooky season. And with that, I wanted to make a list of 10 books that I think are really awesome for this time of the year to read. Um, a lot of these books take place during October or around Halloween. Not all of them, but a fair amount of them. And they're just some of my favorite reads. Um, but before we get started, I just wanted to say thanks to everybody for 300 subscribers. That's actually really cool. Yeah, I won't babble on too much about it, but I just wanted to say thank you, everybody, for taking the time to watch my videos and leaving feedback and comments and things like that. It's what makes it fun. But anyway, the first book I wanted to recommend is The Troop by Nick Cutter. So this is still probably one of my top 10 favorite books ever. I think it is one of the best tales of body horror I've ever read. It's essentially like Lord of the Flies meets 28 Days Later. A group of Boy Scouts go off to an island during October, and their scoutmaster ends up getting killed, and they're essentially left on their own with this virus going around the island that causes like this insatiable hunger to the point where you'll eat like dirt, anything. So it's really cool. It's got a lot of intense scenes, great characters, like the main antagonist Shelly in this. He's easily one of the most like slimiest characters I've ever come across in a book. He just, anytime he comes on scene, my skin just genuinely crawls. And he's so conniving, so manipulative, and just so, but I love it. Like, characters like that are awesome to me. Like, antagonists like that are rare to come by, but Shelley pulls it off very well in this. So yeah, definitely check this out. The body horror is great, and it's a really, really good read for October. Next up, I'd recommend checking out Skeleton Crew by Stephen King. I always really recommend Stephen King's short story collection. I feel like that's where he really shines the best. I feel like you can get a lot of his, wonderful characters, his realistic scenery and descriptions, without it being too overbearing. Like, I think this is where he's able to really focus on scaring the reader rather than, dumping these massive pages of scenery and character development and things like that. You get all of the good without the fat on it, basically. I love Skeleton Crew. It has some of my favorite short stories by him. The Mist, probably one of his most iconic short stories ever. Very different from the movie. Still a good read. The Monkey was really good. The Jaunt is another one a lot of people talk about. I love The Raft. The Raft is probably one of my favorite short stories by him. That has this one scene in it. Oh, I won't spoil it, but it's just, the way a character dies is just brutal. Probably one of his most intense killings I've read. Let's see. Survivor Type is great. I really love Survivor Type. Yeah, so a lot of really, really nice stories in here. And like I said, the nice thing with short stories is you can bounce around and pick and choose what you want to read. If you're not really feeling one, then you can move on to the next. So definitely check that one out. Next up is Usher's Passing by Robert McCammon. So this is kind of like a pseudo sequel to The Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe. Wonderful ghost story. Again, you get McCammon's awesome characters, wonderful world building. His usual stuff. Like a lot of his, again, the stuff I love him for. Great story, wonderful ghost story. I think Poe would be proud personally. Um, yeah, this is definitely when I feel like he was really starting to come into being this epic writer, because like I think this came out after, let's see, I think it came out right after Mystery Walk. Um, I think, but not that he didn't have any really good books before then, like They Thirst and you know uh, The Night Boat. Um, Mystery Walk, I wasn't crazy about. I do have a review of that up if you want to check it out and see my full thoughts on it. But I like I said, I feel like this is really when he started to come into understanding how to build characters and a really vast world without needing so much description. Again, that's kind of where like They Thirst comes in. Again, I love They Thirst, but it has a lot of fat to it that doesn't need to be there, which I kind of noticed with a lot of the Juggernaut vampire novels, but that's for another time. But yeah, check out Usher's Passing. Excellent story. Totally worth checking out. Speaking of Poe, the next book I would recommend is The Complete Tales of Edgar Allan Poe. I mean, can you really go with Halloween without reading something by Poe? Um, you know, I always recommend checking out one of his complete works. There's vast amounts of variations of his collections of works. And you can just kind of get a feel of, how his writing was, how he came to be one of the greats. One of my first experience with horror literature is the Telltale Heart. I love that story. I read that in fourth grade, and it was just awesome. Totally blew me away. Like, I'd never had a story make my heart race like that before. It was crazy. It almost felt like a secret, like something I really shouldn't have been reading. But it was just crazy. And then I read The Black Cat right after, and that was good, not as good in my opinion, but yeah, just really wonderful overall. And then you can also find some of his lesser known stories, like The Unparalleled Adventures of One Hans Fall. That's a really interesting story about, I think that's the guy that gets trapped in a hot air balloon. I think. It's been a little while since I've read it. There's The Imp of the Perverse, which is a good one. How to Write a Blackwood article, that was really good. But yeah, then you got some of his poems as well. The Raven, Lenore, Silence, which is a really underrated one by him. But yeah, can't go wrong with some Poe during Halloween, right? Next up, bit of an oddball one, I would say, but I definitely think it kind of fits the mood. And that is Death Tour by David J. Michael, excuse me. So, this is one of the cases where I was expecting something, I didn't get it, but I wasn't disappointed. If you guys want a review on it, let me know. I still remember this one very vividly, but, I haven't given my full thoughts on it, but this is essentially kind of like a violent episode of Scooby-Doo, essentially. A group of kids want to investigate. There's apparently giant alligators in the sewers under the city, and they kind of want to. They run the school newspaper, and they want to make an interesting article for the school newspaper. So one of the kids' dads works for the city, working in the sewers under the city, and so they end up going on this crazy adventure. Ends up kind of, dissolving into this murder mystery, which was really interesting. And there's this person in the sewers watching them and sort of hunting them, and it just gets crazy at the reveal. And I was just like, oh my god, I didn't even see it coming. So it was really good. So yeah, like I said, I feel like it's definitely like a crazy episode of Scooby Doo. Totally fits Halloween time, and it's not a long read at all. I have the hardcover here, which I think, how long is it here? It's just under 200 pages. It looks like. Let me see. We're just over. Excuse me. Yep, 207 pages. But my sister got me this for Christmas last year or the year before, but I read it right away and I loved it. Totally worth checking out. Next up, I want to recommend A Headful of Ghost by Paul Tremblay. This is still one of my favorite books as well. I think it's a really unique take on the exorcism trope, mixing mental health and reality TV with exorcism. So you really never know what's actually going on. Like, is the person possessed putting on an act? Is it part of the TV show? Is it an actual possession? And there's just some really genuinely creepy scenes in it. There's like this haunted dollhouse scene and this incredibly creepy scene in the basement. I love basement scenes. They freak me out. And this has one of the best ones. And the ending to this is, in my opinion, it has readers divided, honestly. Much like a lot of his works, it has a divided, you love it or you hate it. I personally love it. I think this is one of the cases where an ending like that works because it makes you have to think. And, it's a really good question at the end. Like, it does end on a question, but it's one that really makes you, like I said, have to take everything in the book into consideration and really make your own judgment. So, I think this is a wonderful read for Halloween. So definitely check this one out. It's one of my favorites. Next up is going to be The Haunted Mask by R.L. Stine. Again, it's a classic. Especially, all my fellow 90s kids out there will understand what this book means to us if you've read it. For those who haven't read it, The Haunted Mask is a story about, what's her name? Carly Beth. She wants to have a really scary costume for Halloween this year. Every year, her mom makes her wear this, like, ridiculous costume that kind of makes her feel like a baby and stuff. And she wants to be scary this year, so she ends up going to a Halloween store and, looking around, and, she finds these masks in the back from the shopkeep who says they're not for sale. So she ends up stealing one of the masks, and when she puts it on, the mask starts to attach itself to her body, and the story just gets crazy. Like, for a kid's book, it's actually pretty intense. I've been kind of like dabbling into wanting to do like a full series review of each Goosebumps book. Again, let me know if you're interested in that. But a couple of opening chapters in these are like really intense. Like, I can't remember which one it was, but one starts with like a house fire, and I'm just like, oh my god. I said, that's intense. But yeah, this is a classic. You really can't go wrong checking this one out. It still holds up to this day. Even if you just want to trip down memory lane, it's great. I read it to my kids. They love it. So definitely worth reading. Next up, I'd recommend checking out The Zombie Survival Guide by Max Brooks. So this is sort of like I don't want to say a pseudo-sequel. I would say World War Z is a pseudo-sequel. This would be a pseudo-prequel, I guess. But it's a really fun book. Like, there's some genuinely interesting tips in here, but it's told in a way that's like, it's not somebody sitting you down and you copying notes off a whiteboard. It's as if someone's actually going through it and telling you, okay, almost kind of like Zombieland. Almost. Not quite, but almost like Zombieland. So there's rules for attack, on the attack. So general rules, collective response. As with any other type of combat, undead warfare should never be a solo mission. As stated before, in Western, particularly American, culture, there is the myth of the individual superbeing. One man or woman, well armed and highly skilled, with nerves of steel, can conquer the world. In truth, anyone believing this should simply strip naked, holler for the undead, then lay down on a silver platter. Not only will going it alone get you killed, it may also create one more zombie. Working together, always together, has shown to be the only successful strategy for annihilating an undead army. Picked a random page, random passage, excellent tip right off the bat. And, it's even got some humor thrown in there, which is great. I think humor is awesome in horror. It needs it. It needs that tension break. So this has a lot of that. So like I said, very Shaun of the Dead, very Zombieland-esque kind of survival guide. There's a lot of fun illustrations in it. Let's see if I can find another interesting one here. It's got weapons and how to fortify yourself, scavenge for food, everything, like literally every possible thing you could think of that you'd need to survive the zombie apocalypse. Yeah, definitely check it out. I love Max Brooks' work. He's done World War Z, Devolution, which is great, and a couple other books I can't remember. Excuse me. Definitely check this out, though. Next up, I would definitely recommend Uzumaki by Junji Ito. I believe that's how it's pronounced now. This is just an awesome story overall. Uzumaki tells the tale of a village that's haunted by a spiral, essentially. And people start becoming obsessed with spirals, and things just go crazy, basically. And it's really amazing, like, how psychological this gets. Because, like, it gets to a point where, like, take a look at your fingertips. Your fingerprints. I can't really get it into focus, but you've got spirals on your fingertips. And it leads to some really gruesome, graphic scenery. But it's just, it's awesome the way he does it. It's not excessive. He definitely focuses a lot more on psychological terror. But like, look at this. This is just awesome. His artwork is just really beautiful. Lots and lots and lots of attention to detail. And, it's really interesting because it tells, like, multiple perspectives from multiple characters. And then, essentially, they all meet up near the end of the book for the climax. So it's really awesome. Like, if you've ever wanted to jump into manga at all and have been hesitant, I absolutely recommend checking out Ito's work. It's really easy to read. He doesn't focus a lot on a ton of character development and building. Like, it's very straight line horror, which isn't a bad thing, which, you don't really always need deep, complex meanings and things like that. Sometimes it's nice to just dive into some straight on in your face horror. And this does that. Really great story. And there's actually an animated adaptation going on right now on Adult Swim, which is beautiful. I just watched the first episode. I'm going to check out the second episode after I'm done recording this because it's almost a panel for panel adaptation, but oh my god, is it gorgeous to watch. It's just so good. The way the characters are animated, it's like seeing the pages move. It's not fluid, it's very stiff, but not to the point where it's stop motion. Like, there's always motion going on. If you've ever seen Ed, Edd and Eddy, you'll know what I'm talking about. But definitely check out the first episode. If you like the first episode, I would recommend picking up the book. You can find it fairly cheap now if you don't want to pay the full $30 price tag on it. People usually sell it for around, I've seen it $15-20, so definitely go check it out. Totally worth it. Last but not least, Something Wicked This Way Comes by Ray Bradbury. You know, the penultimate Halloween tale. Traveling circus comes to town. Kids go to see it. Classic tale of good versus evil. But, you know, I feel like this is a book you can read every year around this time, and it's always good. It really is one of the best books ever written, in my opinion. I feel like I just pick up something new every time I read it, and that's rare because I never reread books, but I always read this every year because it's got everything. It's a coming-of-age story. It's got a traveling circus. It's got good versus evil. It's got, you know, temptation, small-town horror. It's got everything. It's got everything. It's so good. It's just so good. And if you've never read it, I really think now's the time to do it. It's how many pages? It's a little on the longer side at almost 300 pages in my opinion. I'm a slow reader, so you know I know people that could read 7, 8, 9, 10 books in a month. So if you're a fast reader, this would be a quick read for Halloween. If you want something that's not super violent or even really violent in general, something that's definitely more, I guess, family-friendly horror, I would say, but not to where you'd like roll your eyes at stuff. You know, it's a really good tale. It's really good. Definitely check it out. But yeah, that's it for me, everyone. That's 10 books that I definitely recommend checking out during Halloween. Yeah, so once again, if you've made it this far, thank you so much for 300 subscribers. That's really awesome. Mind-blowing, humbling, you know. I'm just a guy that likes to talk books on the internet, so definitely kind of weird. But yeah, feel free to let me know if you guys want that review I mentioned on Death Tour. I can definitely get that uploaded sometime next week. And also let me know some of your favorite October reads. I'd love to be able to kind of broaden my horizon on that and see what else is out there. But until the next video, guys, have a safe Halloween. Bye, everyone.